Um, Introducing our next inductee tonight is when we think about so table tennis, backing up a minute, our clubs like we're at today, Tawny Bond's Club right here. This is a wonderful place. This is where table tennis comes from for clubs all over the country. But also another important part of growing table tennis is the collegiate table tennis sport. And our next inductee is going to be introduced by a long-serving leader who has been instrumental in growing collegiate table tennis. He currently serves as the Vice President of External Affairs for the National Collegiate Table Tennis Association. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Joe Wells.
Good evening. So I know the last time I saw a lot of you, just a couple years ago, when I was standing here, we were all scratching our heads as to why I was here and why I was inducting who I was inducting. And even to this day, it was actually a little puzzling about that evening. But for this evening, David, it's not really tricky at all to know why I'm standing here. I want to tell David that it was an adventure getting here. So I saw you putting tape down and doing your typical service work, and normally I would feel bad for David that he has to actually do work on the night that he's being inducted, but I flew in somewhere and I took a train through nowhere, and then I ended up here. So I really don't feel that bad for David. He should be gracious that I'm even here today, because there was one point that I almost just got off the train and wanted to get an Uber back somewhere. But I'm here nonetheless. And so for this, like David, this introduction will be very few words. But I wanted to show here slides of David that we'll be looping through. They're not in any kind of chronological order. It is very, very difficult to actually get the person who runs the camera to get him on camera, but we've actually managed to do that a little bit here. So in these slides, you're going to see Del Vecchio's actions through the years. It all started in the early 2000s for Del Vecchio, and I'll explain that a little bit later. He was a college student with a desire to play table tennis, but no team or organized level of play. At that time, Sean O'Neill was transitioning to the Virginia area, and he actually got duped into instructing an adult education class at UVA's campus at the Slaughter Recreation Center, which was open to the public. And in that class was a very wiry and young David Del Vecchio, looking to hone his table tennis skills. David was able to organize and build the UVA table tennis team, but with the help of Sean and collaborating with Virginia Tech and CMONT TOTA, the NCTTA Virginia Division was born. Something that I'm sure David's still very proud of to this day. I've known David for the better part of 20 years, and to this day, I've asked him many times what he does. And he tells me I work for the power company. And I was looking at him like, the power company. And he says, no, really, it's a power company. I said, no, it's like some kind of secret, top secret government facility that he just doesn't want to tell me about. But really, it was David saying that you wouldn't understand it anyways if I wrote it on a napkin. So maybe one of these days, he'll get around to actually sharing with me about the power company and what he actually does, even though we've been friends and colleagues for 20 plus years. But what I do know is that David served as the NCTTA treasurer from 2005 to 2008, then from 2008 to 2012 as the NCTTA's board representative for USA Table Tennis. I'd like to believe that that was actually the years that he just said to hell with it, and he can be more impactful doing something else for the sport. And ultimately, he left the NCTTA board as a member, but stayed on as a member of our NCTTA Councils of Advisors, which is really code for break glass here in case of an emergency. But David's most valuable work came as a member of the NCTTA Championship Committee since 2005. Some of the slides you're seeing there show Del Vecchio being a jack of all trades, even though his role was production coordinator. David saw also somehow came across some high-grade studio equipment and cameras throughout the years, and again, he worked for the power company, but somehow he traveled around the country with giant black cases filled with all that you need to put on high-level table tennis content. And it seemed like every year the number of equipment boxes that he would bring to these tournaments kept growing and growing over the years. And then he was even more particular about the boxes. Every wire had to be wrapped a certain way. Everything had to be tied up a certain way, and it had to go in this box. That ultimately, again, I used to feel bad for David, and I would want to help him, but now I just go the other direction as soon as I see these boxes show up. And to put on full capability, he brought in portable cameras and boom mics and more mini cameras and angles for our tables to ultimately, if you've seen our national championships, it is one of the best productions that you'll possibly see in the United States and across this great land. As you can see, some of the times it can be, I can be a little unfiltered, and I've had the privilege of having David in my ear for many, many years, calling shots behind the scenes, cueing us in and out, always making sure that he caught my good side, and never telling me, "You're an idiot and you shouldn't have said that." But oftentimes, I would look over to the production booth and see David shaking his head and just scratching like, "I don't even know why I let this guy get behind the mic." Which means that I'm just up here to set it, and ultimately what he would do is I would ask him for direction a lot of times, and he would throw up his hands and just look away, and ultimately what that meant is like, "I don't know, I'm just here to set up and tear down. You're the one who's supposed to be producing good content." And that's exactly what we did over the number of years of our national championships, and it continues to grow and get better each and every year because of David's efforts. And to this very moment, I'm sure you're wondering why I call David Del Vecchio. The late Ralph Radar Presley would never pronounce the I-O in Vecchio, and it was been a running joke between he and I that every time I see him year after year, I call him Vecchi, because Radar would never pronounce Del Vecchio, so it was always Vecchi. One of my most cherished moments that I've shared with David over the years is when he actually has a chance to take a break, and he and I would sit down at a local restaurant bar somewhere and just have a beer. And that was just one of the moments that he would just get to sit back and relax and not really have to do anything, because the moment he set foot into a city or a town, he was working hard and on go from day one. And in this picture here, and it's great timing, David, I want to share with you that all of the people in this picture here would ultimately not come back to the championships or work as hard as they do if it wasn't for David. And I know he probably won't admit that, but it's true. Because of his leadership, his hard work, and all of his efforts, we're able to obtain a lot of great volunteers to put on the championships that we do. So on behalf of NCTTA and the many lives that you've impacted over the years, we want to say thank you, and thank you. And without further ado, please join me in a round of applause for the 2025 Hall of Fame Content Contributor Award Hall of Fame inductee, David Del Vecchio.
Thanks to Joe for that great introduction. I really did get started in college, as Joe mentioned. When I was in school at the University of Virginia, I saw just advertised in the local rec sports guide about the classes they were teaching. It was Sean O'Neill, 5-time U.S. champion, and Lewis Bragg were teaching a table tennis course. And you know, I couldn't believe my luck. I'm not sure. Sean O'Neill, as you know, had a distinguished career as a player, 5-time national champion, 2-time Olympian. He probably was reconsidering his life choices that had brought him to that point. It was teaching scrubs like me in a relatively backwater of Charlottesville, Virginia. But sometimes those things work out. We really need as many people as we can get into the sport. And I really appreciate Sean for introducing me to the sport and teaching me, you know, how to play. And one of the other things I learned early early on, especially at the college level, is that if anything was going to happen, we were going to have to organize it ourselves. And so we had no team to start with at the university, and there was no even division for college table tennis. There were college table tennis divisions in other parts of the country, but not yet in Virginia. And so we got together with Simon Teotia, who's a rival, basically. He was at Virginia Tech at the time. University of Virginia and Virginia Tech are longtime rivals, but from an organizational standpoint, it really brought us together. If we were going to make something happen, we were going to have to actually work together. So even though we were competitors, once we competed in actual tournaments, we were competitors, but organizationally, we were really teammates. And that's a theme really throughout all of my time in table tennis, was that once you're involved on the organizational side of things, it's really a team activity. And so even though it's an individual sport, if you want to get something done, you need to work with a lot of people behind the scenes to really make it happen. And so so we started a team, we started a club, we started competing. And then one summer, I found myself at the university taking summer classes. And it's definitely not because I spent too much time playing table tennis and had to make up classes in order to graduate on time. But while we were there, of course, I wanted to keep playing. The challenge was that the facility that we normally played at was closed during these off times, like during the summer. And there were no tables at the facility. There was another gym on campus that was open, but didn't have any tables. And so we're trying to figure out how can we keep playing, how can we get some tables there? And so we go and we talk to the facility people, and they're like, oh, it's too expensive to buy tables. And I'm like, what if the club buys the tables? And they're like, oh, we don't really have space for them. And they're going back and forth with us. It's, how do we get people? What if people want to come and play? How are we going to do it? There's so many obstacles. And so I was talking to our treasurer at the time. I was like, do we even have money to buy the tables? Like, yeah, I think we can do it. And then, a couple weeks go by, we're going back and forth to the facility, and then we get a message from the facilities like, hey, there's 2 table tennis tables here. Do you know anything about them? And I'm like, oh, maybe. Turns out there was a little bit of mix-up within the club, and someone had just ordered them. And they showed up and delivered 2 300-pound table tennis tables. They were just sitting there on the loading dock of the facility. And I'm like, yeah, those we delivered. And they're like, this was actually an unintentional stroke of brilliance, because now what had been our problem become their problem. And they said, how about you just come down and we can see if we can find some storage space for them. And what do you know, even though they had given us the runaround for weeks at that point, they managed to find a place to store them, and we were able to play basically for the rest of the summer and several years after that at that point. And that's the sort of value in kind of making things happening, sometimes not taking no for an answer. After my short and brief and uneventful and not very successful playing days were done, I wanted to still stay involved with sport, because one of the things that once you're playing in college, you play on a team, because it's very team-oriented, as all college sports are, and that team camaraderie, you travel as a team, you compete as a team, and I really wanted that to continue that kind of experience. And so I joined NCTTA as a treasurer and as a board member, and I really found my team from an organizational standpoint with NCTTA, with Joe Wells and Willie Leparulo, who couldn't make it tonight, and with all the other people in NCTTA that I worked with over the years. It's really a team, and it's a family, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with them. And then starting at the championships each year, we have a recap afterwards to try to see what we can do better. And also around this time, the technology was changing. We were getting digital video and stuff like that. YouTube was just starting. People were uploading video clips, but there wasn't really any kind of live coverage of table tennis at that time. But the technology was getting to the point where it was possible. And so I looked and researched. I didn't know really anything about video at the time, and I was like, I think I could set up a camera. I think I can make this work. and we managed to do the first live stream of the college table tennis championships in 2011, and then it just kept growing from there. And eventually I started doing the USATT events and the ITTF events and a wide variety of different competitions. And it really was a great opportunity for people that can't always make it to the event to see live table tennis. It wasn't going to happen on TV for our sport on a regular basis, but we really could do live table tennis on the internet and continue to do so to this day. It's really often when you do stuff organizationally, it's often I call it like a bit of a magic trick where, you know, if everything goes smoothly, no one knows all the hours and weeks of planning that go into an event, everything you have to do to make sure it goes off well. But if things go poorly, you're going to hear about it. And so one time for the 2016 US Olympic trials, we knew we wanted to live stream it, but the rights to the Olympic trials are held by NBC, unfortunately. And so like, NBC's like, well, we don't really want to put table tennis on a television network. And I'm like, well, wait, can we stream it? And they're like, well, let me see. It's not something we've done in the past. And they're like, then they come back to us and said, yes, we can stream it, but you're going to have to pay for all the production costs. I'm like, that's okay. We're doing that anyway. And you're also going to have to pay for the satellite transmission time because they're used to doing broadcast events where they have a satellite truck, and so you have to pay the satellite truck and rent it, and then it's very expensive. And so we're looking into it, and we're getting together with the CEO at the time, which was Gordon Kay, and the USATT Board of Directors, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. This is going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina, trying to figure out, is there any other way that we can make this work? And we're going back and forth trying to figure out how we can do it from a financial standpoint. Meanwhile, the hours and weeks, they're ticking away, and we're getting closer and closer to the tournament, trying to make things work out financially. Then Peter Scudner, who was just a board member at the time, says, I think I figured out a way to do it. We can broadcast it over the LTN network, which is basically it's an alternative, which is relatively new to deliver satellite video essentially, but over the internet. And so this is what we did. And so he rented the equipment. And while this conversation was happening, I was literally sitting outside the FedEx office with a truck full of equipment because this was about the week of the tournament and I had to ship it that day. And so Peter Scudder says, I think we can do it. We get NBC on the phone. They're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. Yeah, we do that for some of our college sports. Yeah, that would be great. And so right before the shipping deadline, I'm dropping off all of the packages and equipment, and we managed to have a live stream that year of all 3 days of the US Olympic trials. And so that's really, it shows you how people can come together from all the different, all the different organizations to really make something happen. When I moved to LA, I was looking for a table tennis club, and the one that came up that was closest to me was run by Diego Schaaf and Wei Wong. And there I found my home away from home in table tennis. I started playing there. And in 2010, Bruce Liu, who was up from the Bay Area, came down and visited. He said, I think we could start a table tennis league with teams here in the LA area. I was like, team-based league, that's right up my alley. I love team competition, and I'd love to do that. And I talked to Adam Bobrow, who is also a longtime contributor to college table tennis, and you now know of his contributions to ITTF and on his own YouTube channel. And he was really excited about it. And we're like, yeah, we have to make this happen. This is a unique opportunity. And fortunately, we got together with all the clubs, and we had great support from Diego's club and Lloyd and Tawny and Grace Lynn and all the other clubs in the area to start this team-based league. And so we had all players from all different clubs all around the LA area that competed in it. And it's still going to this day, and we have contributions now from from people like Alex Figueroa, who's instrumental in starting the youth league among schools that continue to compete. We're having our 5th year, I think, of the youth competition this year, and it's still going strong. And again, everybody that participated in that is a team-based competition, and I'm really focused on the team-based aspect of the sport. And one final story I'd like to tell, sort of about how everything kind of comes together for these events, is when, at the end of every event, there's teardown, which nobody likes. It's kind of like, asking someone to move. That's when you find out who your friends are. People start walking away. You get all kinds of excuses. No, I can't, my back, all kinds of problems. No one really wants to help with teardown, but it's an integral part of every event to make sure that you can actually get to the next event. At the 2015 US Open, Gordon Kay had this incredible idea to have the tournament at the Omnia nightclub at Caesar's Palace. And he's like, so we're going to do it, but we have a very limited time window because they still need to open up for the nightclub that night. And so we have about 4 hours, or 6 hours for setup and about 2 hours for teardown. Is that enough time? I'm like, probably not really, but maybe we can make it work. Then that day, the match ran a little long. So it turns out instead of 2 hours, we really only had 1 hour. And after the match is done, the facility people are trying to usher us out. They're like, how are we going to get out of here? There's no way we're going to get this done. And who comes to the rescue? But Joe Wells and Willie Leporullo. They don't know anything about video, and other people from NCTTA as well. They're just there at the event as spectators. And like they often do, they say, hey, do you need any help tearing down? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Joe goes and drives the truck and brings it around. Willie's helping, doesn't know how to route cables to save his life, but he's there helping us tear down. And we managed to get out of there in under an hour, and all of the event went successfully. And that's really the value of teamwork in the sport, especially on the organizational side. And so I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of the USA Table Tennis Hall of Fame, to be a part of the table tennis community, and really to be one small part of this table tennis team. Thank you.